Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Means it's time to grab your cup of coffee, and trust me, this morning I need it. Sit back and relax so we can chat about what is happening up in the stars above us today. Happy 2025. For those of you who follow the calendar year, we've just entered into the first month of the new year. And even though I am an advocate for beginning the whole of the year with the astrological year in March, I too celebrated the new year, even though for whatever reason it makes zero sense, right, to do so, except that it's been a habit that we've all gotten into, that we've been raised to believe is the first of the year. It's kind of arbitrary, right? It doesn't really have any true meaning other than the fact the calendar says January 1. But we started this year off with a bang and not in a good way either. When you take a look at the New Year's Day events, New Year's Eve events, actually, it was actually New Year's Day, but happening in the evening in New Orleans. And as well, then a bomb going off in front of Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, and I'm sure around there have been other ones as well, just not hearing about them, in my world at this moment. And I have to say, it all has to go back to what is happening exact today, which is Mars in retrograde Leo in an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius. These are huge energies, dangerous energies. The first iteration of this opposition began in November. And here we have the second exact pass. And there will be another one in April. And these are, Mars is a catalyst. No matter how we slice it up, Mars starts stuff, right? And sometimes it's good stuff. Sometimes he's catalyzing awesomeness. And other times he's awesome. He is catalyzing, problems and or explosions, things like this. So it's powerful and it's an intense aspect. We've talked about it a couple of times already. And in this particular case, what we have is, um, like right in our faces, we're seeing the results of it in the outer world, and it is rocking our world, so to speak. And this is all about collective transformation over the course of time. But it is also kind of a representation for us as individuals as well. Leo is a sign of the individual. Mars is in Leo. So we are also individually reassessing our creative potential and what action we want to take. We're reassessing perhaps our leadership style, our individuality. And while Pluto is across the way in Aquarius, it can also point to our role in this deep systemic change that is occurring. And how do we collaborate and share power? How do we work together in cooperation to move forward? It is a big deal, right? It's huge. And not to overemphasize the impact on the collective, it is also something that you as an individual are a part of. And I don't want you to forget that, right? That this is also, a transit that is affecting, I almost said infecting, affecting each of us as individuals. But the key themes of Mars opposition Pluto are going to always look like a clash between power, personal power, and maybe collective forces. And Mars retrograde in Leo showing us, reflecting to us, ego driven action. The potential is the high side here, which is creative leadership and how we can personally express ourselves. So we may be questioning where our efforts have been put forth and um, how we've maybe got to change the things that we're doing in our lives, and whether our desires are actually being matched with our power, our actions, right? So if you are undergoing a time of calibration, if you will, in your personal life, you are not alone. right? It is an individual path that each of us is taking, but it also is one that the collective is taking. And Pluto and Aquarius, of course, we've talked about many times as the power of collective transformation. And it breaks outdated structures and it demands a shift toward shared progress, not just one person's progress, right? Pluto's energy can feel relentless, and it is almost always going to involve some kind of transformation or change. And in an opposition, but Mars retrograde in Leo, Pluto in Aquarius, we have this push-pull dynamic that's always about asserting our individuality with Mars on one end and surrendering to the larger societal shifts that are happening on the other end. And sometimes within an individual, it creates such stress and such tension that they act out, right? This is kind of what we've been seeing. And that doesn't make it right. By the way, that is not the appropriate use, but it does have the shock value of awakening all of us. And in some ways, shaking the foundation, making the land beneath our feet, metaphorically, shift. And causing us to think about, well, how do we make these changes? How do we do these big transformations in a much more peaceful way? And we do that first by confronting our shadows. So that is the biggest deal of it all, right? Confronting our shadows. Um, Mars retrograde in Leo has been inviting us to revisit, if you will, our ego wounds. Areas where you've felt unseen or unappreciated or underappreciated, or where you have felt out of alignment with your creative purpose, where you can't seem to get your traction going in the direction of your creativity. Pluto in Aquarius has been highlighting societal power imbalances. And oh man, have we been seeing that, right? And it forces us to address where our need for control clashes with collective needs. And, essentially, bottom line, we're being asked to grow up, right? I said this a long time ago when this would have been back in 2012, 2011, and 2012, with the end of the Mayan calendar, or the prescribed end of the Mayan calendar, where the ending of the calendar was actually in 2011 and not 2012. And it really was a time when, in the Mayan mythology, all of the energies of creation had descended into our evolutionary path, and all were available for us to move with as evolutionary impulses came through. And that's like bringing it down to its very, minimum expression. In the main, what this means is that we are all now untethered to an evolutionary impulse. In other words, we are now the full on co creators of the reality that we're living in. And that is at once an awesome responsibility and a scary proposition when we think about how unevolved some of the population is still, including us, right? Us here. We don't even know half the time how unevolved we are until later we look back and we're like, "Oh, wow, I could have done better with that." So, we're being asked to really focus on evolution of our personal selves, right? As it relates to how do we contribute a positive to the evolution of the collective, and not being so dependent upon the outer world. And that's a big deal, right? We've been looking outside of ourselves as humans for a very long time, and looking for something outside of us, whether it's money, whether it's love, whether it's a relationship with, in business, that would make us feel good, make us feel happy, make us feel distinguished in some way. And That's something that's very egoic, and Mars is addressing this egoic self. Now, I'm not saying don't have an ego and don't be concerned with yourself and what your dreams and goals are, because that's exactly the point. Get involved with what it is that your main desires are and contribute that as a gift to the world around you, but in a way that isn't you depending on others for you to be able to do that. I hope this is making sense, because this is hard to put words to, but it's this bigger energy of self-reliance and being able to support one's self and be in your own power. Chiron has been in Aries for almost 7 years now. In fact, in 2026, he's going to make his first change of sign in about 7 years. And he's been talking to us about the wound around our own identities. And then we put Mars in retrograde in a sign that is about our self expression, of our individuality, the expression of our individuality out in the world. And when someone feels shut down, unheard, unrecognized, in some people that can lead to violence. Mars is a planet that will resort to violence, to rebellion if necessary, to war if necessary. So we see these power struggles and we see these intense emotions, the emotion of the clash of will and collective will, right? Coming up to the forefront. The opportunity, though, is for us to transform unhealthy ego energy patterns into authentic, heart centered patterns, right? Into heart centered leadership, even if you want to go so far as that. So we find this whole retrograde period and this Mars opposition Pluto period as a time for deep inner transformation. And I have always thought of, even before I started thinking about counting time in a different way, I've always thought of these first couple weeks of a year as sort of this dream time. And in this dream time, we can sort of look inward and see something different, right? Raising our vision, raising our eyes to see from a higher perspective, and determining, what directions will support our move into this new world, right? What is it that we can do? So, applying that now with Mars opposing Pluto, we have this slower time, because Mars is retrograde, of external action, excuse me, which redirects our energy inward, helps us to focus inward on, well, what actions do I want to take? What are the most appropriate actions, the next appropriate steps? So this Mars retrograde in Leo asks us, what drives our creative passion? And are we acting from pride, or are we aligned with our purpose? And then Pluto's opposition to all of this brings the transformative force to the play and allows us to strip away superficial desires. And that pushes us to dig deeper and rebuild from a place of truth and authenticity. And again, this is happening not just on an individual basis, but also collectively. So the takeaway message here is that this Mars opposing Pluto, while dangerous and while sometimes violent, can act as a catalyst for personal growth, asking us to sort of reclaim our power in a way that aligns with both individual and collective evolution. Your role that you are here to play, and focusing on that, and then focusing on any of the shadows or wounds that are holding you back from becoming all that you can be, right? Now, there are collective implications, and we've seen them, right? We're seeing them. And those themes are about leadership and authority. And there's heightened tension in all of this. Um, in these leadership struggles, right? Are we going to move more into authoritarianism, which seems to be a theme that is enacted not just here in the USA, but around the world? Are we going to move more into democratic leadership, or with less federal authority to interfere? These things are all yet to be seen. but you have to know that the individual egos of the people involved might come into a power struggle with the collective, as we've seen in New Orleans, Las Vegas, New York, places other around the world, I'm sure as well. So on a societal level, right now, with Mars opposing Pluto, there can be a sort of resistance to any kind of progressive changes, and as the old systems are still clinging to power. Right? We talked about this when Pluto left Capricorn, because Pluto moving into a new sign almost over exaggerates the negative of the new sign first before we get to the salve, before we get to the healing part and or to the new energy part. So there's a lot of things that we can see in the beginning that are not so happy, right? Or not so positive. And over time, those things begin to heal and we move in a new direction, a more progressive direction. So right now we're in rebellion. We're in reassessment. And as movements come to the forefront, and trust me when I say they're going to be grassroots type of movements, people coming together, in groups and saying enough is enough. They'll be challenging outdated leadership. They'll be challenging ego driven systems. They'll be challenging fairness and equity and all of those things that we hold, as dear to us, in a nation, for example. And whether or not we've held true to those things, and are we going to continue moving away from those truths, or are we going to move to a higher truth? And it's so fascinating to watch this unfold. It's annoying, right? To be sure. But there are opportunities for growth here, and that's the major theme, right? Pluto isn't just willy nilly destructive for no good reason. Mars is usually, has his martyr stick in his hand, and he's, off on a journey, a hero's quest, if you will. But sometimes that is going to bring him into conflict with others. So, on a personal level, what can you do? Well, right now, I would reflect on where you've been pushing too hard, pushing yourself or pushing others too hard, where you've been trying to force outcomes, forcing things to happen, or where you've been acting from excessive pride. So, how can you align your efforts with your authentic self, with what you authentically value in your life? And then on a collective level, as we all come together in these things, embrace change. There's not much else we could do with this one, right? It's a chance for us to transform power dynamics and then to contribute to a collective vision for progress. That's what we want, right? In the end, we're all struggling to create progress in a way that brings us more freedom, more independence, more authenticity, more love, all of that, right? So this is where we're headed, even though this particular transit of Mars opposing Pluto does so in a sort of dangerous way, right? Or in a way that seems over the top sometimes. All right. So if we take a look at this now and apply this opposition was in effect on the first of the year when we had these big issues that popped up, in at least in the USA, but I guarantee there were other ones, other places around the world as well. When we have Mars in Leo, we have this symbol of personal assertion, fiery will, as in Leo is a fire sign. And then we have the drive to stand out, right? To stand out in the crowd and to claim power. And Pluto in Aquarius represents that collective upheaval that we've been talking about, the deep transformations that need to take place, and the power structures beyond individual control. So when these forces oppose one another, of course, they're going to often manifest in intense power struggle with dramatic actions that are going to take place as a person asserts their individuality, and that can lead to extreme disruptions and tied to, as they are, to broader societal issues that are happening or that we're concerned with. So if we look at the New Orleans truck incident, first of all, Mars, there's not a better representation of Mars than a vehicle used for destructive purposes. That is Mars in its negative. Mars rules metal, it rules cars, it rules weapons. We're weaponizing, this person was weaponizing a vehicle, right? So the act of using a truck to barrel through a crowd could really represent the dramatic and reckless assertion of power. Like, pay attention to me, right? This is what I stand for. And particularly when it is an intent to stand out or cause a shocking disruption. There we have it, right? With Pluto and Aquarius here, this act in New Orleans sort of intersects with the larger societal themes such as mass unrest, fear, and collective trauma. And it could symbolize the imbalance then between the individual ego driven actions of Mars and Leo and their devastating effects on the collective, Pluto and Aquarius. And then a few hours later, or concurrently, a Tesla truck bomb in Las Vegas blowing up at the Trump Hotel. And Mars and Leo, Tesla is associated with innovation and status, right? Aligning with Leo's flair for boldness and prominence, and the deliberate use again of a truck, a vehicle, right? A weapon here could symbolize the individual's dramatic or rebellious assertion. We're seeing it. It's like life imitating as above, so below. And Pluto and Aquarius, a bomb points to destructive power tied to collective systems, right? Pluto was discovered at the time of the atom bomb, right? The time the atom bomb was being built. And so a bomb is a symbol of these things, right? These very destructive, challenging changes that are this destructive power, I guess, tied to change in society. And it challenges our societal norms. It challenges political structures and technology, right? And given the symbol of targeting a Trump hotel, it underscores the tension with power figures, right? And societal transformations that lead to leadership. So we're, in a way, we're rebelling against power, not necessarily the person, but what that person embodies, which is power. And in a broader sort of theme and the lessons that we can be tapping into here, these incidents sort of reflect the shadow side of the opposition, which is unchecked ego, Mars and Leo, actions that prioritize personal drama or dominance over collective well-being, right? Party revelers being mowed down by a truck, right? Very Mars and Leo, especially Leo retrograde. We've seen this before. And then powerful transformation, those destructive forces that are aimed at dismantling or shaking up collective systems. We were shook. I don't know about you, but I was shook, and I don't even live in New Orleans. It doesn't really matter where you live in the world, even. These things stand out in stark relief to what it is that we want to create. We don't want to create this continued hatred, this continued polarity, this disruption, right? So this whole dynamic, this Mars, Pluto, how it's impacting the world, signals a need for humanity to balance our individual will and our collective evolution. I mean, that's the bigger theme in the main. On a personal and societal level, then it's time to reflect on how actions ripple outward and influence larger systems. So every kindness ripples out and impacts people in the positive, while every negative can also ripple out and affect people in the negative. So being very careful, being very responsible for your own reactions, your own actions, your own responses in light of things that have been happening. All right. Now, yeah, the irony is, yeah, I at New Year's a few years back spent it there on Bourbon Street. And so when I'm watching that happen, or I'm watching the results of that, I'm recognizing places that we as a family had been in, right? I had my two of my grandchildren with us that time, and my daughter and her husband and my husband. We were all there, right? But for the grace of God, right? Go I. And yet, there is something that I can share with all of you that I'm going to focus on now. That is really a balm, if you will, for our collective wounds. And that is just a day after that horrible event, Venus moved into Pisces. Now, Venus, remember, represents our collective values or our values personally and our self worth and our money. So, finances get involved, our relationships. She is the goddess of love, after all. And she is exalted, holds her highest esteem in the sign of Pisces. And in the sign of Pisces, she can extol virtues like universal love, right? She can climb to the highest of the mystical, of the magical. And she provides a profound counterpoint to Leo's intense, ego driven Mars retrograde and Pluto in Aquarius's power for evolution. So Venus in Pisces embodies themes of unconditional love, of compassion, and the transcendence of personal grievances through spiritual connection. So she's the salve, if you will. So Venus in Pisces elevates love and relationship to their most selfless and divine forms. And it inspires us to unite, to bring unity to a group, for healing and the breaking down of barriers between individuals, opening up pathways, if you will, for love to flow. And where Mars retrograde and Pluto's opposition can manifest in reckless hate and ego fueled chaos, Venus in Pisces offers us a path forward to compassion over conflict, right? Encouraging empathy, encouraging forgiveness and understanding in the face of division. It encourages unity through transcendence, helping people rise above the individual grievances and see the interconnectedness of humanity, how we're all interconnected. What happens to one happens to all. And Venus in Pisces brings creative and spiritual healing. She invites art, she invites inspiration, she invites spirituality and imagination to provide solace during turbulent times. I wish Venus could be in Pisces all the time. And then we have this Venus Mars contrast, happening, and the reflection of those two on humanity, where Mars retrograde opposing Pluto shows humanity's shadow, and where ego, rage, and desire for control have held sway, and how it can lead to harmful actions that disrupt the collective. It's about dominance and power struggles and the consequences of unchecked will, where Venus in Pisces reflects humanity's highest potential, higher potential, even, where love and compassion dissolve barriers, encouraging unity, encouraging healing. It's a call for us to meet hate with love and to meet chaos with peace. So, how do we apply that in the face of such reckless events in the world? Especially, if we speak to the New Orleans and the Las Vegas incidents that we had that characterized the beginning of this calendar year. And while, these events embody the darker side of Mars Pluto, Venus in Pisces asks us to consider, how can we respond with compassion to those most affected, or for those most affected? Remember the victims in this case. And how can we respond in a way that uplifts them? And what actions can unite us all rather than divide us further? Right? The rhetoric is going to start. I already heard it from my brother in law on that day, saying it's all these immigrants that we've allowed to come into this country. Never mind that the man involved was a U.S. citizen who served in the armed forces of the United States. So the rhetoric doesn't do us any good. We have to find actions and pathways that unite us. And then how can spirituality and this idea of the mystical side of love uplift us all and guide us toward healing, right? These are big things. And, a personal reflection here, Venus in Pisces reminds us that even in the face of this recklessness of hate, that it's an opportunity to choose love and empathy and forgiveness and unity. It's about rising above reactive impulses to align with higher vibrational energies. That's for everyone, right? So we have this juxtaposition, if you will, right? This Mars Pluto opposition happening that reveals the wounds and the struggles, and they have to be addressed. We can't ignore them. We can't shove it under the rug. We have to address them, but it could become very destructive if left unchecked. So then, Venus in Pisces, this transit offers the salve, reminding us that healing comes through love and understanding and spiritual connection, seeing how we are all alike versus then how we are all different. And actually, we are all different and valuing that difference. Not seeing it as something that, takes us and pushes us away from each other, but something that brings us together in this huge tapestry of humanity on the planet. So, in a week marked by this visible conflict, Venus in Pisces offers us this beacon of hope and urges us to see beyond fear and beyond hate and to embrace unity and transcendence. And here's just another little tidbit. As we get into March, Venus is going to retrograde. She'll be in Aries at that point in time. She will retrograde backward into Pisces. So we have other opportunities this year to practice this new idea. It's not really a new idea, but it might be for some people, of embracing love and forgiveness and unity and empathy and, you know, bringing people's hearts to heart, right? Hearts to heart, heart to heart. How's everybody doing with this? Um, let's see here. There are all kinds of things that are happening out there that can be scary, right? There are all kinds of things being said, actions being taken, some that are visible, some that are totally not visible yet. That will shake us up. That will shake our very foundation. I don't doubt that this is just the beginning of something more. And, in a way, remember when we talked about the fact that a lot of the transits for 2025 mirror the Civil War in this country and mirror even the Revolutionary War in this country and around the world and other places as well. And World War II, even, right? These major conflagrations that bring us um, opportunities for change, but are also horrific in the way they're executed, in the way that they are impacting humanity. And perhaps this is a civil war that we're involved with, even though it's not all out civil war. So the opportunity for us now is to see it in its ugliness and to bring some love and peace and healing to it all. So rather than focusing on what's happened, focus on what do we want to have happen? How do we want to show up in our world? How do we want to live in a golden age of peace where everybody's needs are being met, right? That's what we can do. Or we can just keep, empowering the darkness by focusing on the darkness. So focus on what you really want and not so much about what is or what you're seeing. Now, let's go into a little bit more about Venus, who's in exaltation in Pisces. So, this is a word that means that Venus gets to bring her most sublime expression into the world, enhancing themes like compassion and intuition and universal love. And the key themes then of this period of time can be about bringing unconditional love to people. It's dissolving boundaries. It's allowing us to feel a deeper sense of oneness and connection with others, encouraging that forgiveness and recognition that love transcends everything, right? Um, Heightened intuition. As Pisces is a water sign, it amplifies Venus's intuitive qualities, right? The enhancement of our ability to sense and then respond to the emotional needs of those around us, of ourselves as well. And trusting our gut feelings, opening to spiritual insights becomes a powerful tool during this particular transit. There's creativity and inspiration as a theme here as well. Venus in Pisces inspires beauty in all forms. So, is it artistry? Is it music? Is it poetry? Is it creativity that taps into the universal experiences of joy, love, and sorrow? Right? Venus brings this beauty when she is in Pisces. And then in personal relationships, this transit encourages empathy and understanding. We may find ourselves more willing to offer support to others, overlooking flaws, overlooking, what we saw as different in someone. And then spiritual connection. Do not ignore that one, right? Venus in Pisces connects us to something greater than ourselves, whether through meditation, through prayer, or acts of kindness. It's a time for all of us to explore the spiritual dimension of love and relationships. And Venus inspires us in Pisces emotionally, right? Water. It's a water sign. So feelings of tenderness and empathy can run really high during this transit. And we may feel more sensitive to the emotions of others and more willing to extend compassion and understanding to others, right? That's a given during this period of time. Love becomes softer, more forgiving, more idealistic. Be mindful of idealizing others, though, as this transit can also blur reality, as Venus is in Neptune's realm, right? And that can lead us to unrealistic expectations. Inspiration flows freely, so it really impacts our creative energies. And spiritually, Venus in Pisces invites us to focus on unconditional love and unity rather than division and polarity and duality. This is an opportunity then to deepen your spiritual practice, explore new paths to connect with the divine. And then collectively or on a societal level, this transit can inspire acts of kindness and generosity and humanitarian efforts, right? Helping others. It's a reminder that the collective can be very much healed through compassion and unity. So practice compassion, right? For self and others. Express yourself creatively, whatever that is for you. Nurture your intuition, deepen your spiritual practices, do the things that support you. And then, as you embody more peace and unconditional love, that vibration pours out of you and impacts others. So be mindful of boundaries as well. While Venus in Pisces dissolves boundaries, it's important to maintain healthy boundaries, especially in your relationships where there's a risk of overgiving or over idealizing or being overly self sacrificial. So watch out for those things. Now, I love it that when Venus moved into Pisces, she immediately moved into the gate 55 in your human design. The gate 55 is called the gate of faith in quantum human design. In traditional human design, it was called the gate of abundance, or is called the gate of abundance, abundance through spirit. And I love its meaning when we look at it in gene keys, where in the shadow we have victimization. This is victim energy. And then we move out of that victim energy into freedom. And then we move on to greater freedom, right? The highest expression of the gate 55 that Venus is in at this moment is about freedom, right? And it's deeply resonant with themes of emotional freedom, of abundance, and trust in the divine flow of life. And that astrologically and energetically and even practically, this energy brings us this idea of emotional spirit and freedom. I love the 55. It's why I have the dragonfly, because the dragonfly had the story and the gene keys of the gene key 55 involves the dragonfly, right? And the phases of the dragonfly's life. So, in quantum human design, we call this the gate of faith, and it emphasizes emotional freedom and trusting in the flow of life and the awareness that abundance arises from alignment with higher consciousness, not from doing more work. It is not tied to the sacral center, the center of doing. It is tied to emotional alignment and consciousness, right? And that in traditional human design, it was known as the gate of abundance, but it's also about releasing scarcity mindsets and cultivating trust and universal support. That we all have and are all deserving of all that we want, that all of our desires can be met, right? So when Venus moves into this 55, we have faith and love. We're encouraged to trust that love and connection, whether romantic or platonic or universal, will arrive in divine timing. That love conquers all, right? There's a another theme here about emotional mastery, where gate 55 carries this deeply emotional energy. I want to show you. Let me share my screen here for a minute. Um, da, 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 chart presentation, because I actually outlined this for everybody earlier today. Here is where the gate 55 is. It sits on the solar plexus, the energy of emotion, of creativity. And guess what? This gate 55 becomes an important player in the 2027 evolution that happens here in our human designs. It becomes an anchor point for the next 400 years, right? And that is the energy of faith and seeing life from the higher perspective and emotional alignment with divine love. And it also requires us to recognize that there's this natural flow of emotional energy that moves from highs to lows, and that we have to trust that all our feelings serve a purpose, right? That it's not just depression and let's medicate ourselves because of it. And that's not to say that there aren't classical or clinical reasons why somebody may be depressed, but to really recognize that your feelings are authentic and what are they showing you, and how can you align yourself with a different emotion. How can you raise the vibration some through your own personal will. And it is also about an abundance mindset here. And this gate can help us see the beauty and abundance, not as external measures, but as inner states of grace and alignment, not necessarily coming from outside of you. Abundance is so much more than that, right? Now, Venus's exaltation in Pisces meets gate 55. So, what is this about? Spiritual love, right? It comes right out. This transit encourages faith in higher love and the interconnectedness of all beings, that we're all stitched together somewhat in this world. It encourages compassion and generosity. The gate 55 can inspire acts of kindness and sharing, and all of that being rooted in the belief that giving freely creates flow of abundance, right? Giving and receiving are all a part of a bigger cycle. And of course, intuitive alignment is also here. Pisces enhances intuitive and the mystical aspects of gate 55, deepening our ability maybe to trust in our higher selves or in God or spirit or great divine, whatever you call it, right? And emotionally, or I mean, collectively, this emotional alignment can create an awakening. And these shifts might arise within each one of us, asking us as humanity to release fear and scarcity and to embrace trust in a greater emotional and spiritual purpose. There's a bigger purpose behind the curtain. It might cause us to think about more compassionate leadership, where it's an invitation to leaders to and influencers to guide with love and faith, right? Helping others find emotional equilibrium in times of trouble, in times of upheaval. It is creative inspiration as well. This energy can spark collective creativity as people lean into their faith and express themselves through art and music and beauty. So we have some of the same themes of Venus in Pisces as we do with Venus in the gate 55, which is about embracing emotional freedom. Reflect on where fear or scarcity might be holding you back emotionally. Ask, what can I release to trust more deeply in the flow of life? And create or cultivate abundance. Shift your shift your mindset from lack to faith and focus on gratitude for what you already have and using gratitude as a magnet for more. Trust your intuition. Really let your inner knowing guide you, especially in love and relationships and creative endeavors, right? Practice faith in action, right? Faith in action. Engage in those acts of kindness and generosity. Share resources, share time, love, share them freely, trusting that you'll be supported in return. It's one of the laws of the universe, right? Reciprocity. Um, and explore creativity. If it's been a part of your life to hold back your creative energies, let them flow now. Use this energy to create art, music, or writing, anything that you love to create that channels your emotions into something beautiful, maybe even something transcendent. So this is a gift, right? The gift of Venus in the gate 55 is an invitation for us to step into emotional mastery, to step into faith and a higher vibration of love, right? And as Venus moves through this gate, she actually opens the door to deeper understanding and a deeper understanding of abundance as something you align with internally rather than something you seek externally. It's a reminder that the universe supports each one of us when we trust in its flow. So it's the balm to the Mars opposition Pluto, right? Now, I also wanted to look at this through the Sun and Earth this week. Actually, through tomorrow, the Sun and Earth are in the gates 38 and 39. The Sun at the gate 38, the gate of struggle, which we talked about on Monday, I believe it was, and the Earth at the gate 39, which is called the gate of provocation or the gate of recalibration. And the connection of the Earth right now to Venus being at the gate 55 completes this channel for everyone, right? Everyone right now has the 3955. And this is a very powerful channel of deliberate creation. That's the name of this channel. So, first, if we look at the 38, this is about struggle and it represents the search for meaning and also purpose in life's challenges. And it teaches us to really discern which struggles are worth fighting for and which can be released. We talked about that. And the theme here is really emphasizing resilience and determination, asking you to align your struggles with your higher purpose rather than fighting battles that deplete your energy, right? Just fighting for the sake of fighting. And that could be a big problem, right? It takes so much more energy for that. Now, the Earth in the gate 39 recalibration is a provocation to grow, right? We're being provoked to grow toward We're being provoked here to grow toward abundance, toward freedom, right? Toward being masterful in alignment with abundance. So, gate 39 really represents the ability to provoke transformation and to recalibrate your path. And it's about using disruptions and challenges as catalysts for realignment with your truth. Each of us, right? All of us have this right now. And the theme is encouraging you to respond to triggers and obstacles, not with fear or resistance, but with curiosity and a willingness to shift perspectives. So these guys are all playing together. And then with Venus here in the 55, again, this amplifies themes around emotional freedom and abundance. And it kind of creates a softer counterbalance to a little bit harsher sun and earth energy for the week, and certainly to the Mars opposition Pluto energy that we've been talking about. So, how do we bring all this together? Because that's, always going to be the theme I think that we need to work with, and where I really want to focus this year's broadcast on is how do we bring all of these things together? Because they are happening singly, sure, right? I could go in a very chronological order. In fact, this morning I did it totally out of order. Venus and Pisces came before the Mars opposition Pluto exact. Um, but it doesn't really matter because I want to see how do we put it all together. What is the story in the transits? So if we think of these as synergistic energies, right, bringing these together, we have struggle with a purpose, both with the sun in 38 and with the Venus in the gate 55. So while the sun in gate 38 may shine a very bright light on the struggles that we're feeling and that we're facing in our lives, especially where we're fighting for our truth or for our purpose, Venus in the gate 55 encourages us to release unnecessary battles and lean into trust by asking ourselves, is this struggle aligned with my higher purpose or can I surrender it? Struggle or surrender, right? Then we also have a recalibration through faith, right? The Earth at the gate 39 with Venus in the gate 55. So the Earth in the 39 is inviting us to ground ourselves. The Earth is always the grounding, right? By recalibrating how we respond to life's provocations. Like when we get poked, how do we respond? Do we react? Do we throw a tantrum? Do we get angry and upset and give up? Or do we rise to the challenge? Do we see the higher side in all of things? Do we return to love? And when triggers arise, Venus in 55 reminds us to maintain faith in the divine flow, trusting that these moments are redirecting us toward emotional freedom and abundance. Always, right? And emotional mastery through the challenge. If we put all three of those pieces together now, this combination of energies creates a path toward or through emotional growth and struggles and provokes recalibration, which ultimately leads us to a deeper faith. And in the process, we become more involved with our divine selves, more aligned with our divine identity, right? Our divine purpose. So, practical ways to use this energy for this weekend, right? This is activated now. Discern what your struggles are. Take a look at that before the sun changes into the next gate, which will happen on the 5th. So that'll be on Sunday. Um, Reflect on what you're fighting for in your life. Are your battles meaningful? And are they aligned with purpose or are they draining you unnecessarily? Because if they're draining you, let them go, surrender them, right? Use Venus in the gate 55 to trust that by letting go of certain struggles, that it doesn't mean that you're defeated. It just creates more space for abundance, right? Just a reframing a little bit of that energy. And further, reframe the triggers. When faced with challenges or provocations, pause and recalibrate, right? How can this situation redirect you toward a path that's more in alignment with your higher truth, with your higher vision, right? Venus in 55 reminds us to respond with faith and trust in a higher power and find the gift in the struggle finally, right? Gate 38 really teaches that in meaning can emerge from the challenges, while 39 helps us to see them as opportunities for growth. And Venus in 55 is offering us the reminder that even the hardest struggles can lead to emotional freedom and abundance, which, when viewed through the lens of faith, becomes easier and easier the more that we let go, the more that we surrender. Cultivate emotional resilience. That's the bigger idea at the moment, anyway, with this major uh, evolutionary leap that is due to occur just 2 years from now. right, in the human design template. So use the combined energies here of 38 and 39, provocation, and 55, abundance, and faith to build emotional strength, to trust that the struggles are paving the way for greater freedom and greater alignment, right? That it is happening, even though right now, faced with, struggles in the moment, we can't see it as easily, but it's there and it's coming. So I hope all of this is helping all of you guys today, because there's probably more on the horizon that will scare the you know what out of us, or will make us cry, make us get angry, make us think that the world is a place that's falling apart. And in a way, it is falling apart, right? But it's not falling apart in a way that is um, doom and gloom and Armageddon. It's falling apart in a way to be rebuilt in a new way, right? So there we have it. So channel 3955, I'll address that again on another day, because it's a very powerful channel of deliberate creation. We did talk about it somewhat, but there is another aspect pattern that is occurring this weekend that I kind of want to make sure that we don't leave out, and that is that we have the sun in Capricornia in a sextile to Saturn in Pisces. So we have this opportunity of building with compassion. Saturn, the building principle, the sun in Capricornia, about compassion, right? In a very feminine energy of building with integrity, right? The sun um, in Saturn in Pisces is bringing in that compassion, by the way. It's a stabilizing impact. But the Capricorn sun is representing responsibility and discipline, building with a purpose, right? That sustainable vision for building for a future, and the drive to achieve tangible results, but building sustainably, not willy-nilly, not creating such a rush to build that we, create more havoc. It illuminates for us the importance of structure and ambition and long-term planning, but in a more gentle way, right? Saturn in Pisces encourages the integration of spiritual wisdom into uh, all of our practical systems. That Saturn in Pisces kind of blurs those lines between material reality and spiritual ideals. So it offers us a chance to create structures that honor both, right? Honor both. Why not? And together, the sextile, which is a positive or harmonizing influence between the sun and Saturn, brings the practicality from listening to our intuition, right? Guiding us with intuition, fostering grounded creativity with compassionate ambition. It's a time for building, yes, but it's building of solid foundations that reflect our higher ideals and our spiritual truths. So, we're grounding our dreams into reality. Remember, I started the show this morning saying that we're in this dream time, right? The first couple of the last week of the year, the calendar year, and the first 2 or 3 weeks of the calendar year are all dream time. It's a time of nothing that's really solid yet. And it's a time for us to dream the big dream, to set our goals, perhaps, to look at what is it that we want to intentionally create. But right now, with Mars retrograde, it's not necessarily time to take those action steps yet, right? So get involved in the dream time. What would it be like if, right? Fill in the blank. If I lived my life authentically, if I focused on faith and freedom and love rather than hate and turmoil, turbulence, right? So ground our dreams into reality. The sun in Capricorn, sextile Saturn in Pisces helps us do that. It helps us go through this process of balanced leadership, encouraging us to approach challenges with responsibility and empathy. It offers up practical compassion, right? Bringing us the opportunity to create structures that serve others at the same time being sustainable and realistic, right? We don't need more unrealistic structures. So it is a really good time for us to really take a look at recalibrating our emotions, cultivating faith, in ourselves and faith in this universe, setting intentions, even if right now isn't the new moon, that was a few days back. It is a time for us to take a look ahead, reflect on what we truly want. What do we want to create? What do we want to manifest? Ensuring that our emotions and our thoughts and our actions are all aligned. It requires all three, right? Anchor yourself, right? Find what it is that grounds you and participate in that grounding and embrace your emotional cycles because they're all a part of who we are, right? The ups and the downs, the ebb and the flow. They're use the low emotional points for reflection and the high emotional points for action, trusting that both are necessary for the creative process. Remember, the solar plexus isn't just emotions, it's also creativity, right? The creative energy. So I could go on, but I've already reached 9 a.m. my time. Uh, I hope all of this has been helpful for you today, right? We've gone through a lot of different energies here, telling a story of yes, we have this destructive energy, but we also have this other beautiful counterpoint energy of Venus and Pisces and how her energy at the gate 55 and the sun and earth's energies in 38 and 39 bring us the promise of faith, trust in a higher power, and that our struggles are real, but we also are using them to transcend and create a new world for us. And Christine, I love that, to dream the impossible dream. All right, guys, that is it for me today. I will be back on Monday and we'll talk about what's happening that week. Thank you all so much for joining me. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up or the like button, no matter whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube. Share the video with your friends. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't yet done that. And most of all, treat yourselves well, right? Love yourselves and love others around you and ascribe to the highest that can happen when we engage the world with compassion, empathy, and understanding. All right. Much love, everybody. Bye for now.